Crazy. All right. Well, hopefully more people will join in here as we obviously progress here too. Um, I mean, given given last week too with Lewis Hamilton fans, do you think the hype is real about around Lewis? This is like his 11th race. This will be his 12th race potentially if he doesn't win next week without a win. Do you actually see the odds of him winning a race this season being pretty
I
realistic?
I think Mercedes will win races. I don't think they won't win before the summer break. It'll have to take a very crazy race to happen, but I do think they will win races in the second half of the season.
There you go. I think we
As
got
always.
Dr. Obbs coming in here. Sweet. Yeah, I don't know what the stat line would be with them possibly winning or not winning a race, but I would put my money on it. The real question is where will the team Mercedes be if it's ends up being George before Lewis?
Oh, I that would be a bit spicy. Let's say that if that does happen, like if George didn't get knocked out and like didn't get taken out in Silverstone, and he had a chance to win the race, I think it would get pretty. It would. I don't know. I would love to see. We wanted to see Lewis and George actually fight for the first time as teammates. They've had brief ones, but it's never been as long and like spaced out. If you get me.
Yeah, that is true. What I was trying to think, we had chatted the one time regarding I believe it was just before the Australian Grand Prix, and we are talking about the documentary you had watched in Ireland. And I
Mm-hmm.
think you said in that episode that you thought you thought George Russell was going to mop the floor with Lewis Hamilton this season, and there's still time for that
Oh,
to possibly pan out. Who knows?
oh, I know. I would like to retract that statement. That statement I have. You could say at the start of the season a little bit, but no, I think when that car is like dialed in fully, I think George is. If we're going to actually see the pure like what the level George is at as a driver compared to
Mhm.
Sir Lewis Hampton. So I think it would be unless George steps it up. But no, I think it's going to be a whitewash now with Lewis Hampton against George Russell.
Hmm. Yeah. Well, George's streak officially, I guess, ended this past week, considering that he didn't actually score any points. So
I'm going to
but
stop.
that's something he obviously couldn't control. That first lap crash was
Yeah,
absolutely insane.
I'm going to stat pad. He's finished in the top five. He's finished in the top five every time he's finished a race. So his streak is still alive if he finishes a race and doesn't finish out, he's outside the top five. Then we can say, so I'm stat padding. So
Yeah, there is that small caveat obviously in there, but
yeah.
I wouldn't say no to that. Uh, I mean, George's performance has obviously been pretty fair this season. I'd say all things considered, getting into
Mhm.
that seat. And I don't really know any other drivers right now on the grid. Like, do you? I don't know who posted it recently, but it was like someone. I'll have to send it. Someone on Twitter was mentioning like I should be studying for an exam, but instead I made this F1 fan
Oh
chart.
yeah, so yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. And I'm in my head, I'm like, man, there's all these younger European fans that are all just gung ho on Lando Norris. And it really just makes me wonder if Lando Norris was in a Mercedes seat, would he be doing as well as George Russell? Do you think he would?
No, I don't rate Lando as a driver. So
Fair. I'm sure it's probably not the most common take, but
no,
this is huge following on Twitter of Lando Norris fans, and I have nothing against him. I'm just like,
yeah,
I own,
no.
yeah.
Yeah, I don't. I know. I like what he like what he does. Like, I admire his entrepreneurship, his what he's advocates for. But I don't like unless he starts proving that if he starts. Yeah, I need to see more from Lando as a driver. Like he's whitewashing Daniel Ricciardo, and that's fair enough. But Daniel Ricciardo's washed at the minute, so it's sad. It puts a dagger to my heart seeing Ricciardo in such struggles. But um, yeah, I think Lando. I wouldn't say he would do as much that like would he do as much against Lewis? I think qualifying, but race pace, no, I don't think so.
Yeah, I agree. I think Obbs unfortunately left. I don't really know what was going on there. But his race pace, I mean, McLaren, Carlos, I've ever told Danny Rick before he got in that car that it's a tricky car to drive. And I just don't think, I think McLaren, as much as the hype was there, because they really were, let's be real, besides Mercedes and Red Bull and Ferrari was on the back foot, McLaren was the next best team there. So I think for his career, it made sense. Obviously, now with the regulations and everything, I'm sure he probably stuck around with Renault, aka Alpine now, but I don't know. I hope he still sticks around Formula One. I definitely think he's good enough, but it kind of comes back to that mentality. Like the one thing we don't really know is these drivers. Do you think, like, I'm just throwing it out here, like assumes, predictions here. Seb Vettel somehow retires. That spot opens up. Danny Rick still wants to be, in F1. Does he even bother going there? Just because I think as a Formula One driver, your goal probably at this point in Danny Rick's career, you still want to fight for a world championship. That's why you want to be a driver. It's like, but is a team like Aston Martin really going to ever be able to provide him that? I don't know. Is there any other team that's lower on the grid that could realistically be a landing spot for Danny Rick at this point?
Go back to Renault. I think you made a point there, like about Ricciardo at Renault. I think he should have stayed at Renault. I think he would have made it. It would have been a better choice for him. He's already the number one driver in that team. He found it very comfortable in that car, and I think, what team? Like, I don't think he would go to the Aston Martin unless Aston Martin fixed their tractor and they or like to call it a John Deere, and they just fix that. But I think Vettel's going with Vettel. I think Vettel said he's given Aston Martin until the summer break to turn around things, because that's when he's going to make his decision, probably if he wants to move on or go to a different team or whatever. But no, it's hard to tell. Like Ricciardo will have to go somewhere if he demands. Ricciardo demands a large sum of money, like, as well. He's getting paid $15.5 million at McLaren, like. So I think he won't go. Haas won't be able to pay that. Williams, no.
Hobbs is there.
Oh, is he? Oh, here he is.
He lives.
You're on mute.
I think you're on mute, friend. Wait, hang on. I can't hear you. It's all that jet lag. It's all that beer in his ears from that race. If it works.
All that American bacon versus British bacon.
There's Canadian bacon too, right, Rory? Did you know that?
No.
So funny enough, in America, like, you can get, like, Canadian bacon is a thing you can get on pizza, but Canadian bacon is actually just ham.
That makes no sense. Like,
it's still, hang on. Can you
hear me? There.
Okay, finally. I mean, you can have a PhD for engineering, but you can't figure out a damn mic. It's like, geez. Yeah, so that whole take on bacon pretty much almost caused a war between Britain and the U.S. I mean, I gotta say, like, I don't think I've had a good British bacon yet. Sorry, Rory. I don't know if you're.
I'm Irish. That is you don't Britain and Ireland are totally separate things.
Yeah, but so do you guys have bacon in Ireland? Is it like the British bacon?
Yeah, it probably would be, but like we would call it Irish bacon, probably. But, but like we have like ham and bacon, so as well. Like, but it's I don't really like bacon as much, but it's
bacon goes on everything in the U.S. It's like you can't go wrong.
It's its own food group. It's the ultimate condiment.
Yeah, we take peppers and we fill them with cream cheese and then we wrap them with bacon. So it's
Yeah.
like you just can't you can't go wrong.
Yeah.
with it.
So, Dr. Obbs, can you explain to me, because I'm still confused here, what exactly is British bacon?
It's that like back bacon, right? It's
Yeah.
like I think it comes from the back, so it's like totally different. Whereas U.S. bacon, it comes from the belly, doesn't it? Or does it come from the hindquarters? I don't know. It's really fatty, and that's what makes it yummy.
Yeah, it sounds really American there. Let's see if
Yeah.
I can try to throw a quick Google on this, but yeah.
Yeah, British bacon. No, Irish and British bacon is not really fatty. Like it's kind of it's sometimes tender. Like it's
Yeah. It's like a
Yeah.
pork steak. It's
yeah.
weird. It's like when I get bacon, I want it to be thin
hmm
and crispy, but it's like the British one, it's like I'm using a knife and a fork. There's something wrong with that. I should be able to pick it up and like eat it. I
Oh,
still
man.
don't also get beans for breakfast, you guys. I didn't even touch that topic. Like I got a sandwich too, a breakfast sandwich that had beans on it, and I was like, this is really weird.
Yeah, it's I don't. Well, yeah, we would have beans for breakfast as well, like beans with waffles or something like that.
Beans with waffles. See, we
It's
go
No,
chicken
no,
and
it's
waffles,
so
and that sounds
weird.
way better. Beans and
No,
waffles.
No, not waffles, like potato waffles, like something like that.
Oh, okay. Yeah, again, that whole jargon there. But I did look it up. And you were right. American bacon is from the pork belly, which is a much fattier cut of meat. British bacon, on the other hand, comes from the loin, which is leaner cut. Same as a pork tenderloin. So
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So I wasn't far off from like a pork steak. That's what it
No.
tastes like. Yeah. It's weird. But the racing was amazing, you guys. Like that was the most incredible race. I had like a I had like a Lando Norris fan on my right, and then I had on my left a Lewis Hamilton fan. And the guy on my right who was like a Lando Norris fan, I was like, "Oh, you like Lando?" He was like, I said, "You don't like Mercedes. It seems like everybody here likes Mercedes." And he was like, "No, I don't like Lewis Hamilton." And I was like, "That's a weird thing to say." And he goes,
Yeah.
"To me, Lewis Hamilton." He goes, "To the Brits, Lewis Hamilton is like Marmite. You either love him or you hate him." He was like, "There's like nothing in between." So he likes George Russell and Lando Norris, and then he was like, "And I like Max Verstappen third." And I was like, "Man, you're all mixed up, dude."
Oh.
Yeah. Maybe one screws loose there, but
Yeah, he was a good guy though, because the guy behind me was like act like he knew I was a Red Bull fan, so the guy behind me was like actively rooting against Red Bull. Like every time Red Bull got passed, he was like cheering louder than he was cheering for Mercedes. And like after Checo, then Checo had that epic battle with Lewis, right? It's
Yeah.
like Checo got passed by Lewis, and then Checo came back. I mean, when Hamilton goes through, like I was losing my mind. And then when Checo was right on his back and then ended up passing him, like the guy was in my ear. He was like, "Yeah," screaming. And then after Checo passed it around, I go, "Vamos, Checo!"
I love that.
Then you just
Yeah.
got silent.
It was
Yeah.
fun.
How about the travel getting there? Was there like a big, I mean, coming from where you are, obviously going to England, was
Aberdeen,
there
yeah.
like a lot of F1 fans you could see on the move to go to Silverstone as well?
Yeah, there was a big like a caravan. So you guys call it caravan here in the UK, Rory. We
Yeah.
call it in the States, we call it like a camper van. So
Yeah.
there was a camper van caravan, and on the back of it, it had like a huge number 44, and it said Lewis Hamilton. And then down the side of it was like Mercedes, Petronas, AMG. Like the caravan was decked out, and some dude was like pulling it down. So yeah, it's like I saw a few people.
Yeah, I heard the traffic was very like busy, like tailbacks for a while. Some journalists a lot were getting stuck in traffic, like, and a lot of people like I think someone said like someone was supposed to get collected from the campsite, and then Sebastian Vettel was cycling past on the road, and everyone just stopped to try and swarm around Sebastian, and he got delayed. But yeah, like I think they were they. Do you think they were prepared for the traffic, the number of people on the infrastructure wise?
I mean, I don't know how much you can make the infrastructure better at Silverstone, because it's like there's really maybe 3 ways to get to the track.
Mhm.
and two of those ways all bottleneck into the
Yeah.
same place. So I
Yeah.
was a little lucky because Beckett's is like on the opposite side of the Hamilton Straight.
Yeah.
And so where my parking was, I could kind of take like back roads, but it was a
Mhm.
nightmare for other people. Like I heard people were sitting for 2 hours in traffic.
Mhm.
And so most of the time after the qualifying or after the race or whatever, I just kind of hung out at the track, and they had lots of activities going on,
Yeah.
which was kind of cool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the fan zones looked amazing. Like when the drivers came out, like especially where all the drivers after the race came out, Lewis Browis, Roscoe, and like that. And there was a big party atmosphere there. Like like you had like Bastille performing, you had Sam Ryder
Yeah.
performing. Like it looked
Yeah,
really enjoyable.
and the crowd was a bit too young for me, so I was like, because I was by myself, and I mean, I'm 43 years old, so it's like I've had my go at like all that stuff, you know, like I've had my fair share of like being young and dumb, and I was texting my wife like when I actually had signal. It's like the whole place was a black hole. It was unbelievable, but there was this one spot in the fan zone where like you could get a signal, and there was literally like 40 people all standing in this spot, like using their phones, because everybody could actually get a signal there. But I was texting my wife, and I was like, should I go party with these young kids or not? She was like, "Hon, you're too old for that. They're gonna think you're the creepy old guy." So I was like, all right, I'm going, I'm going back.
Hey, you tried, right? An attempt was made.
It was made, yeah, definitely. I had one beer the whole time I was there, you guys.
It's the only one that mattered.
Yeah.
Well, nothing wrong with that. Wow.
Did like know how you said like Red Bull fans? I saw from your thread that Red Bull fans were noticed like if you're going like Scarface or something like that. You were saying like that.
Yeah.
Like did Red Bull fans or Mercedes fans like stick together? Like was there a lot of who like stuck together in groups? Like they would stick like they wouldn't wander outside their safety zone, if you get me.
Yeah, I mean, like I think for me, because I was by myself, I was pretty much mingling with everybody. But
Yeah,
like to my left, you know, for the whole weekend in the stands was like this huge group of like Dutch Red Bull fans, and they were just like, they were crazy. I mean, they
Hyped
were
up
like,
on Red Bull.
yes, they were like drinking from like 8 o'clock in the morning, like throughout the day. But they seemed to have like a good rapport with everybody.
Yeah.
Everybody was kind of giving them crap and stuff. But
yeah,
I mean, everybody was generally really nice, but usually when, you know, people would see me with my Red Bull stuff, and, you know, sometimes I'd get the side eye a little bit and
Yeah.
stuff. And one time, I heard this like younger guy next to me, and he was walking along, and he goes to his mate. He goes, "Hey mate," I can't do a good British accent. Let me try. "Hey mate, hey, do you see that guy over there? He had a McLaren hat and a Mercedes hat. You can't do that. That's like pulling for like Leicester and like Wolves. Like you can't cheer for both of them, you know?" It's like, I mean, it was crazy because like people were like dead set on one, but the best one was when you'd see the families, and it was like dad was wearing Red Bull gear, mom
Yeah.
was wearing Mercedes gear, and like the kids were in McLaren gear. It was like
Just a
everybody was all
hodgepodge.
It kind of yeah.
Oh,
With kids,
man.
like it would be McLaren wise, like it's like more their social media engagement is more directed to the younger audience, like so it's but
Yeah, and Lando is so popular, you guys. I had no idea. Like seriously, I had no idea. I don't know if I was living under a rock, but like when I went there on Thursday, so on Thursday they had all the fan zone activities. They brought the drivers out, like, and Sky Sports did like a whole F1 kind of thing,
yeah.
like pre-show. And like Lando comes out, and everybody's like, "Lando, Lando," like, you know, all the time. And I was like, I had no idea. And I asked the person next to me, I was like, "Lando's pretty popular." And they're like, "Oh yeah, everybody loves Lando." And I was like, "Oh, that's pretty cool." And then he got smacked in the eye by Ricardo with that space ball. That was ridiculous.
It was one way to take out your teammate before the weekend, but going as Lando is whitewashing Daniel Ricciardo at the minute. So
that's right. It's like when you're an F1 driver, you don't need your eyes. You know, it's like
They're overrated.
you
Yeah.
just drive by feel.
Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess McLaren
Oh.
probably knows what they're doing with the marketing though for Lando Norris. It does seem like they do have the younger generation.
Yeah,
I meant
for
to ask
sure.
too. I meant to ask too because we didn't really see. I didn't see too many outrageous or ridiculous outfits, but I feel like the few times I've seen like people dress up with like the huge Formula One like Ferrari hats on. We saw
Yeah.
the memeable guy with the pizza box as the hat in Monaco. Were there any people wearing just absolutely like ridiculous like face paint, anything like that when you were there?
Oh yeah, for sure. There was like the Thursday that I got there was a guy that was like decked out in like Lewis Hamilton gear. He had like a hat on and everything, like a hard hat kind of thing that was all painted purple, and he was like diehard Lewis Hamilton fan. And it was like one of those purple hard hats where you could put like a beer in the side too, and then it had like the little straws
Yeah.
that you could drink from it also. So that was one guy, and then another guy was there was two guys. One guy was wearing like what looked like a onesie, like pajamas that looked like a tiger suit.
Oh, it's
And
a
he
line
was
two probably for Verstappen or something like that.
what maybe so it was like he was walking around with that, and another guy was wearing like I mean in the US, so RJ, you probably know this, but like
Yeah.
the what are they called? Like the farmers wear them. It's like the coveralls, right? That's got overalls.
Overalls. Yeah, yeah.
But he wasn't wearing like a shirt underneath it, and everything was like busting out the sides and stuff, and he was barefoot, and it was freezing cold too. Like I don't know how these guys were. I mean, they were just I don't know. Rory. I mean, Irish people, British people are built different. Like I was freezing, and everybody else was like just chilling.
Yeah, like I'd be like I'd wear shorts in winter. Like it would be.
Yeah.
It's I think a lot of, especially we would say like we don't feel the cold, like, and then when like you would have, because we get like our climate is so different. Like it's 1 minute it's sunny now, like, and then tomorrow like a minute later it's raining. Like it's.
Yeah, legit. I mean, you gotta prepare for all 4 seasons. I mean, I put that in my post too, and that's legitimate. Like I learned that in Scotland early on.
Yeah.
I think one day I woke up, it was like sunny in the morning. It started like sleeting. It was snowing, and then it was raining, and then it was like warm in the afternoon and like sunny. I was like, it's just madness.
all the different holidays or holidays, all the different holidays.
But I was super impressed with like, I mean, the Mercedes, like you could tell, like I was sitting there at the Beckett's S's, and you could really tell definitely during free practice, like which drivers were comfortable with their cars, because you could see who was really sending it through the S's.
Yeah.
I mean, Lewis, first of all, you can just tell the dude like knows that track. He was late braking. He was like he was pinning it through the S's. I mean, he definitely was on point. Sergio, like if I looked at like Perez, like Checo compared to Max was definitely a lot quicker through the S's, Beckett's S's from what I saw compared to like Sergio. Just looked like Sergio was struggling a little bit.
Yeah.
And now they've kind of the article has come out where Sergio's come out and said, ever since I don't know, what was it, Monaco or Imola or something like that, the direction of the car has kind of tended to suit Max more now than Checo, because it's got a bit pointier front end now, which Checo doesn't necessarily like. But you could see it. Like I was kind of surprised by that. You can really see with your eyes, like who's confident and who's not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was gonna say, like, did you like? I noticed with Max as well a lot that Max is able to come out, do one lap. You saw in qualifying, I think, or free practice 3. He went out, did one lap, and he set the fastest time. And then you see when Perez comes out, it takes him about 2 or 3 laps on the same tire to actually get into that performance gain or whatever.
Yeah, it's just the comfort. It's what I noticed right off. I mean, like, whichever driver is more comfortable in the car, they can just send it right off. I mean, and during that qualifying, like it was raining too.
Yeah.
And it was crazy because when quali started first, like for Q1, it had rained before, and Silverstone is so big that like it could rain in
the
Luffield. Yeah, it could rain in like Luffield, but not be raining in Stowe. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, like, and you can see it. It's like there's like different climates on the traffic or on the track. But
You sound like Mazepin describing the rain clouds in Russia.
yeah, right. I
It's
mean,
different. I knew it. I know this area.
when you
I
go
love
to
it.
when you go to a race, it's like you have to become sort of like a novice like meteorologist just to see like, are we gonna get rain? Are we not gonna get rain? You know, like everybody's talking about the weather. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's like when Q1 started, like the amount of water on the track was like very minimal. It was kind of like it was wet here, it was dry there,
Yeah.
but then it started raining more. And then when you got to kind of like Q2, Q3, the water started to build a bit. And then you could see how the drivers had to adjust.
Yeah.
You know, they couldn't carry as much speed like through the different sections because there was standing water in some of the sections. So that was kind of crazy. But I mean, right in front of me, like on the hangar straight is where Charles did the 360. And first of all, that was incredible save. Like it was amazing. I mean, it was like Max Verstappen level that he did, you know, earlier in the qualifying. But that caught like Max because Max was like right behind him, and I could hear him kind of he lifted like coming out of Beckett's when he saw him spinning. But
immediately as he entered sector 3, he had to lift off because the yellow flag was there.
But, because it flashed. It flashed.
Yeah. Did you witness Gotifi in proper in real life?
Yeah, you saw his best performance of all time. Take us through that. That's what I want to hear about.
I know. It's like Gotifi. I mean, I kept my eyes on Albon because I was thinking like he's going to be faster because he had the upgrades and everything. But then when he was out, I was like, oh man. And then Gotifi just kept like falling into, you know, these amazing like laps where the track wasn't quite totally wet yet and he could set like a good time, but nobody else had quite come out yet because they always go out early. You know, Williams always goes out early. And then but then in like Q3 you could see him like he just was struggling, like he couldn't keep it on the track, and then he just went into the pits. He was like done. He was like, all right, 10th, cool.
I think Williams said we're not going to risk the car anymore in case you crash or something like that. But I think you shared an article there in the chat that is Williams getting the full 100% upgrades now, not the just 80% upgrades?
Yeah, that's what Albon said. Albon said that they only had 80% of the upgrade ready for Silverstone, but now they've got the other 20% to go with the side pods and everything else that they've done to kind of complete the upgrade package for Austria. So I'm just thinking like, hey, all right, so we're gonna get a good race out of Williams, baby. You guys asked if it was gonna be on Goat TVs. I don't know. I haven't heard anything about that, but
I think I saw like an article to Race Fans just before Albon said anything, like, and they said that it could take, or I think it was Autosport, they said that it's going to take a bit longer for Latifi to get the upgrades because they're supposed to have the upgrades for both cars this weekend, and then when Albon crashed, everyone thought that the upgrades were damaged, like, and he would have to be pushed back, like, so. We'll have to see when the full and free practice one if there's a difference in the cars or not.
Yeah, I was gonna say just with between you guys, obviously now we have 10 races that we've had so far this season. Obs, you obviously went to the best one, bar none. You know, go Tiffy in Q3. Probably, I don't know about you guys. I thought that was probably outside of one of the first races of the year. We had Charles and Max, the DRS battle. I thought that was probably some of the best racing we've seen all season.
Yeah.
We had Mick in the points, Haas double points. It was awesome. But what are you most surprised about with the first 10 races so far in the season? Because for me, I almost feel like I'm surprised that Ferrari's been a little bit more of imploding as of recently, just given how well they're supposed to do. And I thought they would probably be way more out in the front than they are or have been recently.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, whenever the season started and Ferrari was on form and you saw how strong they were, I thought they were just going to run away with it. And I was kind of commenting as much to some of my Tifosi friends, and they were like, "No," they were like, "We've been scorned too much by Ferrari to know better than this. Like, something will happen, and this will fall away from them." And then they had some of the reliability issues which like reliability issues in their PU I thought was crazy because initially in the season I'm thinking they have a really strong, reliable PU, and then they all of a sudden
Yeah.
start having all these problems. And all the early on, talk was about Red Bull's reliability issues, right? Red Bull powertrains, and they seem to have gotten that sorted. I think the other thing was just like when the season started, I thought Merck was just being their typical like sandbagging kind of selves,
Yeah.
and that they really have got this pace. They're just kind of like holding back and such, but like that they actually didn't have that pace, and then it's taken them as long as it has to get to and I think it still remains to be seen too. Like when we look at the track, I mean, from the start, everybody knew Silverstone was really going to suit them.
Yeah.
And and so it's like I look at where they're at right now, and I think, okay, that's probably the best they're going to get in terms of track. Maybe the French Grand Prix might be, similar as well potentially. But still, at that point, they were even a bit off the, I don't know, free practice and qualifying was all a bit weird, like when it was dry, I mean, Max was like so far out in front of everybody, and then the Ferraris were so much faster too. I didn't know what Mercedes was doing, but then in the race again, they've got really strong race pace and things like that. So yeah, I guess for me, I've kind of been surprised by maybe how long it's taken Mercedes to kind of get their heads around it.
Yeah.
Because it's been something that I thought, in a couple of races they would sort out, but it's taken them much longer.
Yeah.
I'd say my surprise is that in the first three races, all 10 teams had scored points. Like it
Yeah.
was the first time in a while. I think it was like 2012. I think that happened before, like in the first 3 or 5 races or something like that. But I think I thought like the regulations were going to work in a little way, like in the sense there'd be closer racing, but I didn't think that like there would be like still like a Haas like member, like there could be like a 2 backmarker teams or so like that. But yeah, I was surprised that Williams got, like, I think they scored points in 3 races in a row or something like that, and that's their 3 points they have so far. Like, and I hope that they improve and like that. But yeah, that's what I think I was surprised by, how actually like how close the midfield was as well. Like between, like, you had Red Bull and Ferrari, and then Mercedes, and then you had McLaren, Alpine, Aston Martin, all like that in one big group of cars. So yeah, it's.
Yeah.
What about you, RJ?
I mean, for me, Rory, you brought up a great point with the points. Honestly, I'm surprised all of them. I'd say for me, the biggest surprise, truly, there's a lot of different storylines, I guess, in some ways. I'd say for me, the biggest surprise is probably just how much you get teams that are historically really good more recently, like Mercedes. And when we had first spoke, Dr. Obbs, you talked about like the development curve and how early we are and teams changing and things like that. I think for me, the crazier part is just the shakeup top to bottom on the grid, because I feel like any given week, we know, the main teams that are obviously doing better as of recent. If, Ferrari can keep their mistakes to a minimum. If Red Bull can obviously have, a reliable car, because they do run a bit of bad luck. Mercedes has been, regardless of what you want to call it, consistent for the most part, at least. They're obviously not the front runner, but they've been really one of the more consistent teams. I think it's just a shakeup in the midfield. Haas, who's been the doormat for the last few seasons here, finally is doing something. So I think the shakeup on the grid is what surprised me, because I know the regulations, teams are going to get it right earlier on. Going back again to our conversation earlier with Dr. Obbs, because that just plays in my head whenever people ask me about F1. Oh, it's all about the cars, and all that. I'm like, you really don't know this season. This is a season, if any, to watch. So I've been most surprised with the shakeup. I also think in some ways I've been a little disappointed because some of my predictions I thought were going to happen were nowhere close. I thought Gotifi would be gone by now. I figured, people were talking about Danny Rick's head. I want him to stay. He's still in. So it's been kind of all over the place.
Yeah.
But
I thought
it's been
Haas
good.
would be a lot more consistent than they've been. I mean, especially because they started the season with most of the, allocation for time and credits and things like that for developing the car, and the fact that they pretty much just gave up on 2021 to focus on 2022, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they came out the door really strong, and I thought like, okay, they're gonna also develop from here. But and maybe some of that was hampered by some of the accidents that they had with the cost cap and things like that. I think probably also hampered that. But I guess I've been a bit surprised by kind of how streaky they've been. I really want them to do good. Like them and Williams, I think you guys almost bought a Williams shirt at the race. Like I was legit like super close to it because
the hype was real.
The hype is real. Like I'm such a fan, and I know a few people like on the Williams team and stuff, and so they're all just like good people and humble and like I don't know. I just root for that. So
everyone has their soft like they have a team. Everyone has a team they support, and then they have that like kind of soft spot for a team as well. Like so, I think my soft spot would be for Williams as well, like or McLaren at times. Like, but it's actually, you said like you bought merchandise. Was the merchandise expensive at Silverstone?
Yes, it was
ridiculous. I bet it was pricey.
Yeah, it was so bad. Like a hat was like 50 quid, and I was like, I mean, you can get onto the store, the F1 store, and you get that same hat for like 35 quid or something. And so, I mean, for me, I got all my merch before the race because I knew it was going to be really, but some people got caught out like because they weren't prepared for the weather or the rain or anything, and so then they had to go in there and get it, and they just got robbed.
Like buying food in an airport, like the 10-pound bag of mini trail mix I should have just packed myself. I'm so stupid.
I mean, see, that's where for me, like I kind of like resolve myself to the fact that I was going to spend a bunch of money on food because I didn't want to. You were only allowed a 20-liter bag, like for a pack, a rucksack, as they call it here. You're only allowed a 20-liter one. Although I saw people walking with much bigger ones than 20 liters, but mine was 15 liters because I didn't want a big one. So I couldn't put a whole bunch of food in there. And so I was like, all right, I'm gonna skimp on like lodging. I stayed with like this old lady in Milton Keynes, and like her son lived with her. And it was the coolest, like most legit thing. It was like 25 quid a night, and I was just like totally comfortable. It was amazing.
Yeah, sounds comfy.
It was great. And she'd like set me out breakfast in the morning and everything.
So bed and breakfast. So
well, it was an Airbnb. It was just her spare room in her house. And before I went, I told my wife, I was like, this is either gonna be the best decision ever, or I'm gonna end up on a Netflix documentary. I was like, because
oh my gosh,
I was
curious case of Dr. Hobbs missing.
That's right. It's like I once stayed in an Airbnb. This old lady killed 40 people. It's like
oh gosh.
But
I'm convinced, by the way, Dr. Hobbs, that when you had that one beer, and Rory, I don't know if you were thinking this, when you had that one beer, it was immediately after Latifi had gone into the third qualifying session, and you're on your way to make it, and you're contemplating that merchandise or not. And you're like, man, I'm really ready to party right now. You fired off that text in that circle.
That's right. It's like, just slam that beer. Let's go.
Down the hatch, I got my fuel.
I know at Miami, like I saw the merchandise as well as expensive. But I think like everyone's pointing out that a lot of circuits they do have expensive. They up the pricing of because they know people are going to come in and get merch. And I think it was Aston Martin. I know Aston Martin on their website is very expensive because even on the F1 store, it's like for like a soft shell jacket is like €600.
Yeah, the only women's pullover, I believe, was like something insane like that, Rory. You're right.
Yeah, it was.
Jeez.
Yeah, Aston Martin are known for their, especially since Lawrence Stroll took over, the merchandise has skyrocketed. I know Red Bull are about, like, I got a 2019 soft shell for about 120 euros.
Yeah.
But I think that was discounted. But when at the time they're usually around 150-ish, I think, or
Yeah, I mean,
160.
if you're gonna get like a Red Bull jacket or something at the track, it was about 180 quid,
Okay.
190 quid. But
Yeah.
then if you're gonna get it off the F1 merch store, you're right. It's about 130,
Yeah.
120. So it's
Yeah.
definitely cheaper there. But I think what they're counting on is like the marketing high that people are
Yeah.
like at the track. You know, you're
Mhm.
surrounded by everything. You see everybody wearing the gear, and you're
Yeah.
just like that dopamine in your head
Yeah.
just goes nuts, and you're like, I don't care how much it costs. I want that, you know.
Mhm.
I was pissed because like I spent all this money for like a hat and like a shirt and everything because I'm thinking, all right, British summer, I'm gonna go like short sleeve, you know, and
Mhm.
then I'm wearing like a coat, a raincoat over my shirt. I paid like 50 quid for, and then I'm not even wearing my hat because the wind is blowing so damn hard. I got
Yeah.
a beanie on, you know, to cover my ears up. And I'm like, nobody even knows I'm a Red Bull fan.
That's why you should have painted your face.
Yeah, there you go.
And
I should've
everyone
done
would
some-
know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
I was
Yeah.
gonna say too, to the two Red Bull fans obviously in the room right now, on the eve of the Austrian Grand Prix, you know, we just had our Silverstone, we had Lewis Hamilton at home. You could say now we got Red Bull at home in some ways, obviously. Do you think the Red Bull Porsche announcement will finally be announced on
No,
the eve of this race?
it doesn't look like it's going to be. It's come out from a few serious and well-respected journalists that I think Albert, what's the tech guy called again? Albert, I can't pronounce his.
Fabrega.
Yeah, he got information saying that it won't be on. Like, it said the deal's not done because Honda, there's going to be top senior Honda officials at this race this weekend. So that could, because I saw the race did a very good video where they said that Honda are thinking of putting more Honda branding on the Red Bull next year because of the success of the Honda Red Bull are winning. It's really a Honda engine, but it's under Red Bull powertrains, and they want recognition for it. So I think they're saying that Honda is going to have a partial return in 2023, and that's kind of what the Porsche deal is up in the air now. If Honda wants to come back and they go with Red Bull again, or the rumors are just Honda want to buy AlphaTauri and make a works team, or like that, or just make a works team themselves, or maybe partner with Andretti even. Like,
Yeah. I think probably the most probable thing will be that the Porsche deal will go through with Red Bull. I think though that the possibility that they make a works team or stay involved with AlphaTauri, I think
Yeah.
is probably the most probable scenario.
yeah,
There's yeah, I'm in another chat where with some people and a few people that are connected in through Red Bull used to work for Red Bull, and yeah, they also said, you know, it's delayed, but that it will go through, is what
Yeah.
they're saying. So yeah.
like
I see.
this deal has been like, if anyone knows Engine Mode 11, he said ever since he worked there, like that it's always been Porsche's always been rumored to want, like, since like 2014, like it's always wanted to happen. Red Bull always wanted Porsche a partner with Porsche.
That's right. Yeah, I guess Audi though they just said is pretty much with Sauber, so it's going to
Yeah.
be an Audi Sauber kind of a thing there. So
Yeah, it's like someone said like that. Rumor was that they've already bought 75% of shares in Sauber or something like that of the racing side of it. I think just to, so that could be. I wonder if it would be just Audi or just would be Audi Sauber. I wonder how Alfa Romeo will think, because I heard Alfa Romeo did want to stay involved with Sauber, but if Audi comes in, that's not going to happen.
yeah, exactly. I don't think Audi would allow that. I think it would be Audi Sauber, I would imagine.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
probably a good one. I got to ask you guys too, because apparently rain could be on the forecast coming up this next weekend at the most recent race. I'm going back through the last 3 years that we've raced technically for podium finishers. In 2019, it was Verstappen, Charles, then Valtteri. 2020 was Valtteri, Charles, then Lando. 2021 was Max, Valtteri, then Lando. So, ironically enough, obviously Valtteri's gone right now, and Max has won 4 of the last 6 races there.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think you see a Red Bull obviously finishing P1 this next weekend?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, when I think of Silverstone and I think of Lewis Hamilton, I think of Max and the Red Bull Ring. I mean,
Yeah.
it's like the dude is just, he
Suits him.
knows that track. Yeah, it
Mhm.
suits him perfectly well. It suits the Red Bull too, their setup that they're typically accustomed to. Believe what you will about what Helmut Marko says, but Helmut Marko said that like the turbo design in the Honda is like well suited for high altitude applications, and other engines are not so much. But like actually on F1 TV, I was just now watching while I was eating my dinner the 2021 race, and
Yeah.
it was crazy. It was like 10 laps in, Max was like 6 seconds ahead of everybody. Like it's crazy.
It was like members like it was members 2 races, Austria and Styria, and he won both of them. And it was like in the first race he was so far ahead he did burnouts on the start finish line.
Yeah, he stopped and then did a burnout. I know, it's crazy. I think the only way that we don't probably get this is gonna sound so arrogant, but I think it just suits the car well, it suits the driver well. And I think the only way we don't get that is if you get some sort of an incident, like either with rain issues and or coming together on the first lap, or ingesting an Alpha Tauri front wing into your floor. I don't know, it's like crazy.
Yeah. I was looking up the odds recently, and they have Max and Charles actually both tied right now for best odds to win it. And then besides that, it's Carlos and Checo tied a little bit later down for
I mean, it suits the Red Bull and the Ferrari. Yeah. Honestly, like this track, it suits them both. I think it suits the Ferrari just because they've been able to shed some drag and now go with more of although they're not running, from what I can tell so far, they're not running the low downforce rear wing. Mm-hmm. So, they're going to go with more of the mid downforce for this track. I don't know if they keep to the same rear wing they have on a Thursday, but that's what I see at the moment. And most of their pace keeping up with the Red Bull was with the lower downforce rear wing. Mm-hmm. So, but they've got so much traction that, still, again, barring any reliability issues, I think it's got to be Red Bull and Ferrari.
Yeah, barring Ferrari, if they can go 2 races without an engine failure. But I heard it's going to be raining each day, so we're going to have rain on Friday, rain on Saturday, rain on Sunday. We could see maybe pit stops in the sprint race, which would be interesting. But I think, like Obbs mentioned, all the factors there. So I think it's going to take, if Mercedes want to be on the podium, I think it's going to take an instant or something, rain, turn 1 instant, reliability. I just think it's like Mercedes are just now, they used to have a car that was so dominant that they could pace and then get another gap up or whatever. But I think they're just relying on the misfortunes of Red Bull and Ferrari now.
Yeah, that kind of has to be their advantage. They need their biggest competition to have some sort of hiccup, really, or something unexpected like that too. You guys so far too, a fan of the sprint races? We've only obviously had one so far this season. Do you think this track is really the one that should be a sprint race just in general at all? Because to me, there seems to be in some ways kind of no rhyme or reason. And I was, when I was chatting a while ago about the Miami race, I was saying, I just think it makes sense for a fan perspective and a branding perspective. If you have a new race coming on the grid, put the sprint race at that track, so you really get a lot of action. But a racetrack like this, it seems obviously like a good idea. It's a historic, track in some way, especially suits a home team. I don't really know if this is the one that I would choose. You guys agree, disagree?
I think for me, the things that I don't like about sprint weekends is that we usually don't get a lot of upgrades. to the cars on sprint
Yeah.
weekends because people just don't have the time to set the car up and
Mhm.
truly to test the upgrades. So like the tech side of me doesn't like that. But what was the last sprint race that we had was in Imola, right?
Yep, that was where
Yeah.
Carlos had just got his contract extension, and then later in the race had his issue.
That's right. Yeah. I mean, if you end up getting a good result out of the sprint race, then you love it. If you end up bidding it during a sprint race, then you hate it. It's kind of like there's no in between. Red Bull Ring, though, to me is one where we'll see. I think we'll get a good chance to see early on. So tomorrow, whether or not these aero regulations are working well or not. I think this track could potentially suit that better. I hope so, because one of the things I didn't like about the Red Bull Ring, though, historically, is that it's a short lap, but you can get some quite a bit of spacing in the lap, between the race runners, and I hate races like that.
It's like the last two races, Max Verstappen with a 30-second gap or something like that.
Yeah,
nearly lapping up. I think he lapped up to like 6th place or something like that. But it'd be interesting to see what the overtaking will be like, especially with these new regulations of cars in the sprint. Like someone made a good point that the last 10 laps of Silverstone was what the sprint should be. It should be on end-to-end overtaking.
Yeah.
And I think as well that it's, especially with the points as well, how it's like from 1st to 8th, you think that a lot of teams would try and fight for those extra points, but it didn't really seem like that in Imola. It just seemed everyone in the top 8 just said, we're just going to stay in the top 8. We're not going to overtake unless it's for like pole position or something like that. Like they would overtake, or if it was nearer the front row or something like that between the top teams, but they do it calculated. I think then the rest of if Williams made up, they'll only if they were starting from the back, they would say, can we try and get to 15th place or something like that? I'm okay with sprints. I just wish it was like Silverstone last 10 laps where we had end-to-end racing.
Yeah.
Like overtaking.
Completely.
I mean, is the issue that the sprint races are too long? Because I mean, if they shorten the sprint races a little bit like that, we could get teams on like the softs and just run it for like 10 laps or 15 laps or something like that, and have everybody really pushing. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know, like unless they provide more tires as well for the weekend as well for a sprint race, so they could have mixing up like different strategies, because they're still limited with their tires for the weekend, and especially if it rains or something like that as well. But
yeah, that's a good point. I think as time goes on and more seasons eclipse where you get these, farther along in the development curve, I think at that point teams will probably take more risks. But I think right now it's just like you had mentioned, Dr. Hobbs, like if you're not really upgrading any packages at all, I don't really know if it's worth, a car going into a sidewall to really test that out. So, but you'd brought it up too, especially in this track where there's more some, longer straights. One team in particular for me, I'm selling stock in. I think McLaren, sorry, Norris fans. I think they're not going to have a good week coming up here, because that's the one thing they're not good at, the long straights. And I think their pace, Danny Rick's season's just going to go a little bit more down the drain after this one too. So I mean, because
they've got a pretty draggy car.
Yeah.
I mean, it's probably not a surprise when you look at kind of, I mean, their side pod setup and everything. I mean, which is different though than the Ferrari. I mean, the Ferrari in essence is a bluff side pod as well, but it's got that pasta bowl and everything that's got going on. Alpine, maybe, look, with the amount of straights you got on this track, could have a strong showing. I mean, I was really surprised with I thought in Silverstone, sitting there Beckett's S's, that they would really struggle through the S's with low downforce setup, and I was super surprised to see how good they did through there. It wasn't on par with the top 3 teams, but it was still really good, and they had great straight line speed as well. Now, what's going to happen in the Red Bull Ring, where they're going to really be able to show that straight line speed? They could have a surprisingly good showing for sure.
Will the times be faster or slower at the Red Bull Ring, you think, this year? because like so far they said the cars will be slower anyway, but if they have like the Red Bull top line speed could make up for in the corners or anything like that, you have the Alpine that like top speed. Do you think we could have similar times from last year?
I mean, theoretically, I think you could have, if anywhere on this track, potentially similar times. But I still think it's gonna be a little bit slower. I just don't think there's. I mean, the cars you had last year, you had development time on how many years was it? 7 or 8 years or something like that, where you had that same design, and they just been able to make those things incredibly aero efficient. And I just don't think we're there yet with these cars. But it could be close, on this track.
I think Aston Martin, though, speaking of teams, I think they actually could have a good weekend as well, because Seb Vettel, regardless of what you want to call the car he's been driving, has been pretty impressive. And I feel like that experience, if it does come to the wet, that's where you get teams that are slower that can actually obviously, change things around. But I also, at the same token, it's like, talk about driver comparisons. You got Danny Rick, struggling. You got Lando, stocks up. Seb Vettel does really well.
Aston Martin though Aston Martin had terrible qualifying in the wet, right? It was like Canadian Grand Prix and then Silverstone. They just for something happened. And they had strong pace in the dry running too. You're thinking, so there's pace in the car. Very clearly, there's pace in the car. So I think if we've got a dry race, it could be another midfield team potentially. As you said, McLaren could drop back a little bit with the track not suiting them so well. Maybe then Aston Martin kind of elevates a little bit. You've got Alpine up there as well. So I still think Mercedes can do really well, honestly. I'm just not 100% sure they're going to be up there with the same competitiveness that they had in Silverstone with Ferrari and Red Bull. Let's see how their new rear suspension does. That they apparently have an upgrade for this track, which you 100% need for this track, because you need to run a much softer rear end. And so with their old suspension, if they ran a softer rear end on this track, it was like they would be like a 64 Impala. I mean, they would just be bouncing down. It's like crazy, But with hopefully when they get that upgrade done there. But I'm just thinking, everybody was talking about all the upgrades that Red Bull is doing and such early on in the season, and just saying like, how is Ferrari was saying Red Bull should have spent 75% of their budget by now and things like that. And if I look at the upgrade chart, like, it doesn't matter if you're trying to solve porpoising or if you're doing a performance upgrade, it all costs the same money. It's all the same money, right? And so when I look at the amount of upgrades that they've done since the start of the season, it's like they have the most out of all of the teams. And then and apparently they've got this massive so they put a massive package in Silverstone. They've got rear suspension upgrades they're doing now. And then apparently for France, they've got then another floor aero update package that's coming. So it's like all these things. I'm just wondering, like, where's all this cash coming from? Everybody's talking about Red Bull, but what about Mercedes?
Someone's greasing the right palms, I suppose. Money goes missing off the books.
I think as well, like, I think Ferrari did bring a little bit of side pod upgrades to Silverstone, I think, if I'm correct, Dr. Obbs.
I don't know, actually. I wasn't able to keep track of a lot of the upgrades because I was 10,000 miles above sea level in the Beckett's grandstands. But there was rumors they were going to do some contouring.
Yeah, that's what they did. I think that's what they did.
All right. Okay. I hadn't heard that, but yeah, there was some rumors they were going to do some contouring. Yeah. The bowl, I call it the pasta bowl. The pasta bowl is so unique in that most of the time, like, the body of the car is going to generate lift, and the side pods in essence are going to have portions where you're going to generate lift, which is not necessarily totally a bad thing, because lift also helps with downwashing things.
Mhm.
So you also want that with a side pod. You want to downwash. And so, but still, like Ferrari's been able to generate actually some downforce with that side
Mhm.
pod with the pasta bowl. There was in a Reddit thread, there was a guy that did like a CFD of the design and showed very clearly there's portions where you're able to generate some downforce.
Mhm.
So yeah, it could be one of the reasons why they do have a lot of good, downforce and grip and traction and things like that. But the contouring doesn't surprise me. I think they're still on the first gen version of that.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, and like even Haas still have to bring an upgrade, which is supposedly planned for Hungary. So we could see another B-Tech Ferrari, all the Ferrari upgrades. What Ferrari's going to bring, because like everyone thinks Ferrari and Haas are secretly collaborating together. But and I think as well we haven't mentioned Alfa Romeo. It was gearbox failure for Valtteri Bottas in Silverstone, which they've been having problems with their gearbox for some time, and then we had Joe's crash, unfortunate crash, and then I think has the investigation for the roll hoop come back yet, or is it still in investigation going on?
Yeah, they're still investigating it. I mean, the interesting thing from that though is that you've got the two different designs for the primary roll structures, the primary roll hoop structures. You've got the the typical hoop style, and then you've got the blade style, and they had the blade style, right?
Mhm.
And then I mean, you could very clearly tell that it actually sheared, or it didn't necessarily shear, but it they adhere it to basically the monocoque section right there behind the driver, and there's a bit, not 100% sure on what they use, but I've heard that they use some sort of like an adhesive gel or glue or something like that, so it's not actually affixed to the structure itself, but it took a massive side load and just went flying off, right? So it's like, but when you look at the regulations on how they actually test the primary roll hoop structure, they test it in the axial direction, so the X direction, which is along the length of the car, longitudinal direction. They apply a load, and then they apply it in the lateral direction or in the Y direction across the width of the car, and then in the Z direction, like straight down on top of it. And it failed in the Y direction. And the load that they apply the test in the Y direction out of all three directions is the least. So it's the most in the Z direction. So they're talking about they may need to take a look at like that load distribution. Do they need to now maybe increase the load in the side direction as opposed to having it be lower? But the other thing is that the way they put the load in, they say it gives the teams up to 3 minutes or something like that, up to a minute or 3 minutes to apply the peak load, which means that you can gradually increase the load. So load as a function of time can be like a gradual sort of like a force that you apply, versus in that case, what happens? A car flips over. It's not a gradual force. It's like a shock. It's like a big impulse load. And so that's a completely different load distribution as well. So they're going to have a lot of questions and to ask themselves on whether or not the tests that they're doing are representative of what actually happens, in a rollover.
Yeah, like I think I saw in More Sport article that Joe said that the FI, it was like the impact was much larger than the FI expected.
Yeah. Yeah, I would believe that. I mean, honestly, because the load that they're applying in the lateral direction, it just doesn't seem to me like it's nearly enough. But this is one of the things that you do is you learn as you go and you make adjustments. Thank goodness for the Halo, obviously, because that saved his life.
Yeah, in those groups too, Dr. Robbs, I know obviously know more of the technical side of the sport. Does that information actually always released by the FIA or the teams? Like, do the teams actually have to distribute that to everyone to know what the load or the impact was at that point? Because I'm so used to on TV seeing, like you got whatever driver going through a turn, and it's like, all right, they're getting 4 Gs, on going right here, going left there, whatever else. Did they actually release that info?
Yeah, I mean, they'll
Okay.
surely share that with all the
Yeah.
teams
I was gonna
because I mean,
say,
the
yeah.
teams need to be able to validate their designs,
Yeah.
especially if they find that the loads were maybe higher than the test loads, and then in that case, they'll it's not difficult. They have finite element analysis that they can do of the structures, so they can do a pretty quick check just to make sure that structurally it's okay. I think if anything, though, as an engineer, it doesn't matter if you're talking about motorsport, if you're designing an airplane, a car, a bridge, right? As an engineer, the last thing you want is anything that you've designed to cause loss of life or anything like that. So you put typically you put what's called factors of safety on top of your design, which is like, if I design it to the 100% load limit, I'm going to put a 50% factor on top of that. So then it's like 50%, over engineered in essence. But you don't really have a lot of that luxury in F1 because 50% safety factor can mean, 2 kilograms, right? So they cut the margins very close, but that's why I think each team is going to be very keen to understand what happened and also ensure that the tests that they're doing are representative of what their drivers actually see.
Yeah.
What do you guys think about the flexi floor thing? Did we talk about this before I got in? This is like my nightmare, like through the weekend. Like I was just getting blown up about flexi floors. But
well, give us your take then, and maybe we can reevaluate ours. Because I'm curious from your side, what do you think about it? Because the best video. So I loved everything you had to say the entire weekend. The best video that I thought you did was the one where you saw on the main straight that porpoising, where you could actually see the effects on the actual ground. I thought that was so interesting. Because that's something you don't really see from a fan perspective really ever. I feel like we know what it is, but we don't actually visually know what it's done to a track, which is cool.
Yeah, and whenever I went and watched the onboards, like after I got back home, I was kind of watching the onboards. It's like some of the teams, Mercedes, McLaren, on the onboards, I could hear like right when they and I could see it, like I could see the yellow marks in the track during the race, like that I saw with my own eyes. You could hear it was like boo boo, like this is like doo doo, like right where those two were very successively. So I think it was bouncing. I don't think it was porpoising. I think there was probably, you can't sense it when you walk over the track. It looks totally smooth, but like when you're doing 300 kilometers an hour or whatever, right? Any little bump you're gonna feel it. So I think it was bouncing, but the whole flexi floor thing to me is like, it just blows my mind because I think that I heard some rumors as well, which are that actually that. So by the way, first things first, the FIA reviews everyone's designs. Okay, before they get tested, before anything happens, the FIA sees the CAD models, they see the simulations, they see everything. Okay.
Yeah.
So they know what it's doing before they test it. Okay. So nobody can tell me that the FIA had no idea that some of the teams had implemented different designs to allow their floor to flex more. Okay. Because they see the native files. They see the design files that nobody else sees. All right.
Yeah.
So I don't believe that for a second. And what I heard is that the FIA was aware that some of this stuff was happening, but because it was actually eliminating bouncing and porpoising, that they didn't necessarily do anything about it. And it wasn't until this then became knowledge for the other teams, and then the other teams now started to make a big deal out of it and protest it and things like that. And now the FIA had to act. That's the rumor that I've heard, the paddock rumor that I've heard. And when I put that together with what I know about how into the details the FIA is in the designs, it just makes sense to me, because I don't see how, I mean, my engineering mind can't wrap my head around how you can look at the design and not tell that there's an engineering design intent for something that's been done, right? Whether it's a weakening of a section or where you're putting supports. Okay, anybody who's an engineer can look at a design and sort of have an idea of what you're trying to do with that design. And so for me, like, I just don't buy that they had no idea. I know what they're saying in public. Now,
Mhm.
with that said, my also engineering mind says if a team has found a way to allow the cars to go fast, but reduce the issue, which is the bouncing. Remember, this whole thing came because drivers are being subjected to incredible loads.
Mhm.
RJ, we talked about this, right?
Yep. Yeah.
We talked about the stress on the body.
Mhm.
So if teams have found a solution that allows you to go fast, but eliminates or reduces the amount of bouncing of the impact load on the driver, why do you want to take it away? Like, make it to where the other teams now are also able to do that kind of thing. And you say, all right, like, I believe in the regulation, like, regulate it, but that's fine. Create a regulation that says, okay, in the center section here, you can deflect, or in the center to the rear, you can deflect 6 millimeters. You can deflect 4 millimeters. Regulate it and put a test in so people don't go crazy, but don't take it away, because then what you're going to end up doing is now all these teams that still have problems with bouncing and porpoising they don't still have a solution,
Yeah.
whereas
Yeah.
here's a potential solution that allows everybody to still go fast, and you just want to take it away. I don't get it.
Yeah. I don't either. And unfortunately nowadays I feel like it's like, you look at some of, like, as much as we love talking about, there are always some bias obviously amongst the big pundits out there and stuff like that. And one tweet I actually saw about it was pretty funny. It was saying, and I was trying to pull it up here, is like, if Mercedes was suspected of having a flexi floor, how much of Sky's pre-race coverage would be used to analyze it? And would the same coverage been applied if it was Red Bull or Ferrari? And I'm like, okay, I kind of see both sides of that conversation, but I'm with you. I think the hard part, as probably the constructors know more than anything else, it's like, if you have that selective advantage, you're not really obligated to tell anyone. But obviously, if the FIA does do that and makes them tell, you would hope the teams are forthright in some ways. Because at the end of the day, it comes down to a lot of it is driver safety. And like we had chatted with Dr. Ives, like, we don't know the long-term effects of porpoising, and hopefully we don't ever really have to from a safety or health perspective with drivers. But to me, I guess I just wish there was a different term than flexi floor. I'll be honest with you. I'm thinking of tampons or something when I hear that. So I want to change the name completely, but
It's the keel. It's
yeah.
actually the keel. It's the very middle of the floor that's flexing. So we can call it the flexi keel.
Okay, the flex. Well, I don't know if that's much better, but whatever.
Flex keel.
Trademark pending by Pierre Gasly on that one. But
yeah. It's named Verstappen has become like his new nickname by Mercedes fans is Flexi Floor Stappen or something like that. Or no, it's Max Floorstappen. Sorry.
That's creative. I'll give it to them.
I think as well. It's like, if I take it, like, no one DAS was around. DAS was regulated and said you couldn't be used next year, but they're saying, like, people are saying, oh, why did the Ferrari and Red Bull allowed use these floors, like, and they should dock all the points off them and like that, but like I know DAS was outlawed the next year, but they allowed you to use DAS for the whole season, like.
Yeah, I mean, first things first. By the way, Red Bull, if it is Red Bull Ferrari, I mean, because the FIA statements and things like that, nothing says who it is, but basically it's coming out of the paddock that people are saying that it's Red Bull and Ferrari.
Yeah,
and Red Bull and Ferrari are the most vocal against it, so it kind of makes sense. But first of all, what they're doing right now is not illegal per the current specifications. So any talk of docking points or illegal floors is just simply not true. It's until they implement the technical directive and change the regulation, then and only then will it now be in violation. So it's not in violation. And when people talk about spirit of regulations, like, this is like a double-edged sword, because I've used that term before and everybody tells me there is no spirit of regulations. It's black or white, which is true. Like, it is black and white, because and I even before this I came around to that. I like agreed with them, but because the teams make their money, they make their tents on finding the loopholes, right?
Yep.
DAS, the F duct, I mean, the blown diffuser, all
Yeah.
of these things are perfect examples of that. And so, if we want to limit something, then I say limit it because of a safety reason. All right. But when they've now looped this in to say that it's part of the porpoising issue and how we want to measure the vertical accelerations, then you lose me in that it's a safety issue anymore. Because actually what it's doing is reducing the probability of the vertical accelerations. So it's not a safety issue. It's a safety issue when you regulate it and take it away now. And now you're going to potentially cause teams that weren't porpoising to now start doing it, So it's like, then in that case, it becomes a safety issue. But to me, I think it's, what do you guys say in the UK? It's bollocks.
It's definitely not brilliant.
Yes, definitely not brilliant. The opposite of brilliant.
Really dumb. With that too, though, Dr. Obbs, how long do you think it actually would take that to come out and have a ruling with it? Is this really because I am newer to F1. I don't, DAS, the rear duct, everything like that. How long of a lay time was it from when teams actually discovered something was going on to actually something being implemented? Is this something we're definitely going to see in the next few weeks here, you think?
Well, Rory said, that DAS was kept through the year, which it was. And I still haven't heard a really good reason for why it was outlawed. But one of the things I've heard is that, so number one of the reasons why they've outlawed a lot of the suspension techniques that they had before for this year's regulation is because the FIA was having a problem regulating it.
Yeah.
And so it's possible that DAS was the same way, maybe. But the other thing that I heard was that in the cost cap era, the FIA was concerned that other teams would be able to implement DAS and still stay within the cost cap.
Yeah.
So that I've heard both of those things. Again, if it's a safety issue, I think they act swiftly. And I think with the bouncing and finding the vertical G limits, I think they did the right thing by stepping in and by although it's taking them longer, it's like dragging out now. It was going to be Canada, and then it's like now France, and who knows when it's going to be next. But so there's all kinds of like tinfoil hat like conspiracy theories going on right now. Yeah, it's ridiculous. But I think in this particular case, they're going to regulate it. I think they're going to specify that, that it needs to be 2 millimeters from front to back. And, whether you choose to believe what Christian Horner says, where he says, okay, fine, it's not going to be a problem for us kind of a thing. I think there is going to be some kind of an impact for them. I don't think they're going to be bouncing down the track, but, is it going to harm them in their pace? Maybe a little bit. I mean, when I've talked to people who know, they say it's maybe worth half a tenth to a tenth, possibly. But who knows exactly. I guess I'm just a bit more irritated that all the teams like Haas and some of these other teams, Alfa Romeo from time to time, that have been struggling with the bouncing, and Mercedes even, although Mercedes implemented all of this to get rid of porpoising. All these teams that are struggling could have had like maybe an out, and we're just taking it away, and I just don't understand it.
Yeah. Well, we talked about earlier too. I mean, I think each season has its own challenges, and I'm sure obviously the regulations obviously go around what we have, and with new regulations, like you would think in some ways they probably act a little bit more swift than they would probably with, if this was just a regular season that we've been running, after 3 or 4 years and found out about it. One question, if it's okay with you guys, just to segue a little bit, is we're 10 races in. Hot takes, predictions, anything you got in the wheelhouse regarding the next 10 races, or even from now to the rest of the season. I would pose a question to you both with preseason predictions. I think you both had Red Bull winning it all. Would you still agree with that?
I'll let Rory go first. He's the chaos expert.
Yeah. Bring it with us here.
I will say this. I think Ferrari, if they continue how they're going, they will finish third in the Constructors' Championship.
And does that mean Mercedes second?
Yes. If Mercedes, because Mercedes have a very reliable car and
Yeah.
very consistent. If
Mm-hmm.
they continue their consistency, I think, and if Ferrari keep making reliability issues, can't make them, but they have reliability issues and they make blunders in strategy, and Red Bull keep going ahead, I do think Red Bull will win the Constructors. The drivers is still up. If it depends on the look of Max Verstappen and all like that, but I definitely think the Constructors is definitely Red Bulls to lose. I think it's how their gap they have so far, but I think Ferrari could finish third in the championship.
Yeah, that's honestly that's a good take. I mean, I wouldn't disagree with that. I think Mercedes is on the upwards trend in terms of their performance and their gains and things like that. I think from what I've seen from the Ferrari race strategist, who may or may not be a dog picking things out of a bowl, that's I just don't have a lot of confidence that they're going to be able to get the strategies right and win races that way. I think maybe for like a fiery take from my side, I think actually that Williams is going to start to advance up into the midfield and start to actually compete in the midfield. And I think by the end of the year that they're probably going to be behind Alpine and Alfa Romeo, but ahead of McLaren.
Oh, would you say Aston Martin as well? If Aston Martin don't if their qualifying doesn't improve, if they keep getting ninth, do you expect Williams to be like about sixth or in the top?
What
10
did I
at least?
say? So I think it will be in the constructors: Red Bull, Mercedes, Ferrari, Alpine, Alfa Romeo, Aston Martin, and then Williams.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. I think McLaren will be behind Williams by the end of the season.
Yeah, if Daniel Ricciardo keeps up his pace, I don't think
Daniel Ricciardo's not been very. I think Lando Norris is single-handedly going to carry that team, but I think that I like Albon. I think he's a really good driver. I think he's underrated if he doesn't get completely taken out in the race start. And I think their upgrade's going to work for him. I really do. I was upset to not see it, run in Silverstone, but I think things are going to start to come. I don't know. Maybe that's just like the hopeless side of me that's rooting for them, but that's my hot take.
Yeah.
What about you, RJ? What you got?
Yeah, I mean, so for me, I think a lot of things you guys said I really resonate with. The whole Mercedes Ferrari thing, them flip-flopping, I can definitely see. I think the biggest thing, the biggest factor between those two, I think it's Red Bull's championship to lose. First 10 races, I thought it was going to be, earlier on Ferraris, but they just had a run of bad luck. The thing for me, I'm most curious is where does, out of any driver on the grid, forget Red Bull or Mercedes, where does Charles Leclerc end up after this season? Because he's done a 180 in some ways. And the fact that Carlos has, did really well last year, and then he's also, been doing better this year with Charles' bad luck. That's where I'm most curious. But I do see Alpine leapfrogging McLaren. I see McLaren digressing. Call me cuckoo, but if AlphaTauri can actually buckle down and hanker in, I could see McLaren possibly even falling a little bit more. Just because even going into races like this, the McLaren's slow on the main straights, and I don't know, even porpoising or not, if that's going to really do that much to a team like that. So we'll see there. I will do my boldest take of them all. For whatever reason, I don't see. Granted, he just had the best race of his career. Latifi's gone at some point this season. It's going to be announced. I'm throwing it out there, speaking it into an existence. And then call me cuckoo again here. But I'm actually going to throw that at the end of the season, statistically, Lance Stroll is the worst driver. Let me throw it out there.
Latifi, if Latifi keeps up his good form,
Yeah,
that could, because Lance Stroll at the minute, qualifying wise, is abysmal.
yeah,
He got in the points, I think. No, he was 11th, I think, in Silverstone, wasn't he? I think now. But I was going to say, I think, going back to Carlos and Leclerc, I think Leclerc has a contract till 2024.
yeah,
I think he would be a viable option. Say if Hamilton, Lewis retires in 2024, I think George and Leclerc would be an amazing partnership. And I did do a hot take that Carlos Sainz would win a championship before Leclerc at Ferrari, but that was after the hype of Silverstone. But if you think about Silverstone, like Leclerc with a half a front, like with like no right front end plate, was faster than Carlos Sainz with a full front wing. Like it was.
yeah. That is nuts. It'll be interesting to see where the drivers shake around. I guess maybe the Latifi one was maybe a little bit too hot, but I would just, I guess for me, I know it comes back to the whole concept of like pay drivers and everything like that. And I guess I don't really have any beef with either of them. I think, the Team LH fans, probably a fair majority, don't like Latifi at all because of Abu Dhabi last year and that whole onslaught, which that's its own season of podcasts right there, just to react to that madness. But I guess for me, it's just like, I come into Formula One as a newer F1 fan, and I almost think like in some ways Formula One is the purest when you have the best drivers possible in all the seats. So I mean, I just hope eventually that some of the more paid drivers just get out of the sport, to say the least. I know it's not really a prediction, but
I think it will happen. I mean, I'll be interested to see what happens with Ricardo.
oh yeah,
I
gosh.
think I really think Ricardo, like, he could move over to
Yeah.
IndyCar and be probably happy in America,
Yeah.
But
but before you had actually hopped on, Dr. Hobbs, we were chatting before, Rory and I, about how, looking back, it probably would have been better for him to stay at Renault. And also, would Danny Rick, if a seat even opened up on a team that right now you may call quote unquote a lesser team in some ways in terms of championship contending, if one of those seats even opened up, would he even really want to go to that seat or just ultimately go somewhere else? Because I think the fighting spirit of him, I don't know if you guys have listened to a lot of the podcasts he's been on, but like he's been on Dak Shepard's podcast, he's been on Armchair Expert, a lot of like more podcasts. He's a really vocal guy, like bright and outgoing. It's just, I don't really get the vibe from him that he would ever drive in a car that's not championship worthy. And that's respect to him, if that's really the way his career ends, which would be sad, but yeah.
I agree. I mean, I think he's probably I think he's always wanted to maybe race in the States or be in the States.
NASCAR
something like that.
NASCAR or something like that.
Yeah. I mean, you got Lewis Hamilton, who's now a Brazilian citizen, and I think Daniel Ricciardo is probably the closest F1 driver America would ever grant that to. So we got to do it. Let's do it.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, who comes in behind him though? Is it pretty much Piastri who's going to come in for Williams? We're thinking if
it's a
yeah, they had him on loan.
Okay.
Strong rumor he's going on loan from Alpine to Williams.
Okay. So then it would need to be somebody new. Would McLaren bring somebody up from? They wouldn't bring up Pato O'Ward, would they?
Unless they did a swap with Daniel Ricciardo and Pato, you go Pato come. I don't know if he's enough super license points, but if Pato comes to McLaren and then Daniel goes and takes Pato's seat at McLaren in Arrow.
Yeah. They'd also talked too about the possibility of another IndyCar driver like Colton Herta, who apparently in like some of the earlier testings had was doing better in some of the simulations than even Kimi Räikkönen when he had had the chance to actually do them with him. So That could be another name too. I think the harder part here is like a lot of American fans are probably really pushing for IndyCar, like an IndyCar driver to make it into Formula One. And I think for the layperson such as myself, as much as that would be really cool, I don't think we really understand how difficult it is to drive those cars. So I guess it could kind of go twofold. I don't really know, comparing apples to oranges, if you're better off doing someone who's already raced in like Formula 2 or something like that than an IndyCar, but who knows? Remains to be seen. But
Yeah.
if we get more teams in F1, that's also a good part too. More access to actually get drivers in. I think it's a joke, even like a guy like Piastri has to sit a season out. I think that's just dumb. Why win a Formula 2 championship at all, really, in my opinion?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, money moves mountains, and if you've got it, then you probably got a seat.
Something like that, yeah, too. Oh, wow.
Like it's something like $2.5 million for a Formula 2 seat at the minute. And then especially when they're going to Australia, probably go up to 3 million next year if they have to go to Australia next year for Formula 2 and Formula 3. But yeah, I think Formula 3 is about $1.5 million for a seat of sponsorship.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
I think in Silverstone, the thing that sort of blew me away was how dominant Jamie Chadwick was in the W Series.
Yeah.
I mean, she's just like wiping the floor with everybody. And I'm thinking, why doesn't she get a shot in Formula 3 or Formula 2? I mean, like, what's the holdup?
That's hilarious you say that, because I was literally just thinking about the same thing. And I don't truly understand why, if it's supposed to be a feeder series in some ways, why you wouldn't try to implement something like that to get a driver, or at least give her the chance, or do some sort of formal testing or something like that. I don't know if it needs to be maybe not like a lateral move, but Danica Patrick, you speak of females, she had success in IndyCar. It's like, if I'm Jamie Chadwick in the middle of the season, I got nothing going on, I give that a shot. Why not? It's just I don't really know what else you really have to do to try to prove that you're worthy of those seats, especially if you have the raw talent, you just don't have the money.
Yeah, she has Jamie Chadwick has mentioned that IndyCar she's keeping an eye on IndyCar for a seat if it does come up, and she said she would take it if it came up.
Yeah, where does the W Series, Rory, you might know more, where does the W Series rank in terms of like F2, F3, F1?
I think it's F4. I think Formula 4, I think, or Super Formula, something like that.
Yeah, it's below F3. It's not the same power of the engines as the F3 cars. I mean, the WC Series cars, they make this crazy like backfire sound, like they backfire like mad, and then the Formula 2 cars also backfire really bad, but the Formula 3 cars they don't. It's weird. But you can definitely tell the Formula 3 cars are a bit not as fast as the Formula 3s. The W Series cars are not as fast. But she was just kicking everybody's tail out there. Like, it wasn't even close. I mean, she's just so much of a better driver. You could see it.
And like, she's two-time W Series champ, going for a third. And I do think that might have to be a rule in W Series that you can't keep coming back and winning the championship. You have to you might be allowed to stay for 2 seasons, and if you win the second season, you go on. But like, I feel like you need to let more people grow and have a chance to win the championship like that. But if the driver's too good, I think getting Jamie Chadwick needs to be an F3 or F2. I think the funding, if you win W Series, you get $500,000 or something like that for W Series.
I don't know. I think the biggest issue she had for an F3 seat, I thought, was that she didn't get there. Or maybe F2 is that she wasn't able to put together the funding.
Yeah,
I think I saw. Yeah, which is surprising. The sponsorships, which is surprising though, because you think like, there's a lot of organizations and people who would be very willing to, to fund a female to come in and to fill that seat. I mean, for inclusion and diversity reasons and things like that.
I completely agree. I'm almost, that almost sounds like to me like something like Lewis Hamilton would do, like self-funded drive or something crazy like that. But from a branding standpoint, we chatted earlier about Lando Norris, and he's got the fans under 16. It's like, man, any any female who's a fan of Formula One would be all over, having a female driver to root for in any perspective. So it definitely is surprising, but who knows with a lot of the red tape that I'm sure is the FIA and regulations and stuff like that. As much as we wanted, it could be, an access to care type deal where there's always going to be one hurdle that we're never going to know about in the public, So,
Yeah.
Oh, well, it does beg the question though, but oh, well, any final thoughts or anything from anyone else?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'll be really keen to see where this vertical G load limit thing goes. I've heard some rumors. So they put out an incredibly complicated equation to calculate it. I don't know if you guys saw it. And I've talked to a few people who are a lot smarter than I am on this side of things. And they were like, it's just not a complete picture. Like the equation is not complete. It doesn't tell the whole story of what they're trying to do. And I've heard that potentially it might get delayed a little bit further, or the load limit might get softened as well a little bit. That it might not be such a hard limit like it was, and it may become more of like a suggestion kind of a thing. So I'll be interested to see kind of how that one goes and how
me too. I will say maybe there should be some sort of particular award given out every year outside of the Nobel Peace Prize, just for whoever figures out the world's biggest problems. And right now in Formula One, it seems to be porpoising. So
definitely.
Yeah. I was going to say one thing to both of you, because I was on a different podcast recently. They asked me a great question, and I think it's a great personality question for you both. And I'll give you my answer, but it was, you just got obviously back from Silverstone. Any 3 races you could go to currently on the grid, which ones would you choose? And you had to exclude Monaco specifically because it's kind of like its own, it's its own production, everything like that. The ones that I actually came up with, my first one I had was Baku, because that's the first race I ever stumbled upon in Formula One watching. You kind of get that street circuit type layout. To me, it could be cool because if it's a street circuit, I feel like you could get a cool vantage point from a lot of different areas. You get the main straights and really see, the cars really doing what they're meant to do. I had also said Mexico City, just because I don't have too much stock in Formula One teams outside of Danny Rick, McLaren being the only merch I own. But there I would definitely rock Red Bull and be with Checo. Because if there's a race for a driver to win, I think that would be really cool. And my last one I had mentioned too was I actually had Montreal, just because sticking with the North American circuit, I thought that would be really cool too. But that was just me, obviously being somewhat personal bias in North America. But yeah,
I don't know if you guys Rory?
Any things.
Where would you go, Rory?
Definitely first be Silverstone. Second, North America. I'll go to Kota. It looks like a very good vibe there. And thirdly, I think I'll go to, I don't know, I think I'll go to another European race. I haven't made my, I definitely wouldn't go to Spain anyway, but what European? I might go to Monza or something like that. It looks,
I think for me, I would go, I mean, Silverstone definitely was on my list, so I'll cancel that one off since I went. I would say, list. Yeah, it's off the bucket list. I would say the other ones are Spa. Definitely, like I really want to go to Spa. I was actually looking to see if I could somehow swing tickets last minute, but everything sold out. So Spa, Brazil. I heard the vibe in Brazil is like really cool, and I would definitely go to that one.
Yeah,
and then Spa, Brazil, and I mean, Coda. I think again, also just for the vibe, like I would want to, and I will, like whenever I move back to Houston one day, definitely go to Coda. But I would want to kind of experience what it feels like in America, like kind of knowing what Formula One is like in Europe right now. Like how would that compare kind of in America? I would be really interested to see.
Yeah. I was reading more actually about the Miami race. And they actually ran at a deficit this year. They actually lost money, hosting that race, which is pretty surprising. But the
Yeah.
logistics of it weren't nearly as bad that people had truly told me about, which I thought was kind of interesting to hear. But I think the biggest thing with those two circuits is, and I'm sure you probably got that a lot, obviously in Silverstone too, in some ways, but some of them are race circuit specific and other ones are, it's a venue that's already there, like Monaco, you already have the street really already there and established, and you can already kind of work around it. But the planning, it's just, we think about the engineering side. It's like, man, I don't even know what the planning side of those events has got to be like. It's got to be absolute madness. Because
crazy. I mean, what are they going to do in Las Vegas?
And that's so Rory might not appreciate this as well, but like American football, that's scheduled to be the Saturday after Thanksgiving, which is nuts. That same weekend, which they're doing a really smart idea about knowing when they want it, because everyone's going to be home with their families eating turkeys. Like, they're doing it really smart. But you go back even to what you said about the Spain one, not wanting to go there. My girlfriend's uncle went there for the race more recently and said it was a logistical nightmare.
Yeah, it is.
Really?
And he said that they said it was so hot. They said they had issues with water, and like F1 Diplomat had said, like, the best thing about Miami was they had these hydrating stations and reminding people to hydrate. Spain, they didn't have that. So they had people who lived nearby just running water hoses to get people water. And my girlfriend's uncle had mentioned that the circuit was about 30 miles outside of the city where they were. And it was all trains and buses that were coming random times. And they would just kind of drop you off somewhere and then turn around and get more people in the shuttles. Yeah. And he said that the worst part was they were coming back and just had started walking. And he said there's about 40,000 people in line, and which I'm sure is a little exaggeration, waiting to get on these trains and shuttles to go back. And they had inadvertently cut everyone, not knowing, unbeknownst to them, and felt really bad, but still got on the train and just left. And I was like, that's when you tell anyone who's unbeknownst to you that you're from a different country other than America.
Yeah.
We're going to think we're a-holes.
Sorry, I'm the American.
Yeah. It's my right to be here, guys. We won the world wars for us.
I'm an idiot. No. Yeah, that's what I usually say. Sorry, I'm an American. I'm an idiot.
I heard like the F1 have gone to the Spanish organizer or the circuit Barcelona and said, the organizers of it, to say you need to get your in order, because we like, if you want to be in the calendar, we want very easy access to the racetrack, the facilities up to scratch. If anyone knows Ed Spencer, he was saying, like, who's a journalist, he was saying that when, like, you nearly didn't get like food in the media center in Spain. He said, compared to Silverstone, like, you had to go over to the main grandstand to get in Spain to get food, and in Silverstone you literally had a beer and a pizza. Like, it was. Yeah.
I was amazed in Silverstone, like, how well organized they were. I mean, even though the traffic is what it is because of the location and the type of roads that you have. But once you get there, the organization of the parking lots, I mean, the ticket entries, stands, the hydration stations as well, to be able to get water, and all the food booths and things like that. I mean, it was very expensive, so they're definitely kind of like gouging you a bit on that, but it was very well organized.
I should end this in some ways with you guys, because there's or not in a bad way, but questions I want you to ask me to ask this guy. There is an individual online who refuses to go on, the podcast, not in a negative way. But he has spent money, an insane amount, and been to, in the last, I believe it's the last 2 seasons, he's an American, he's been to 10 races, but got in the full paddock pass and everything. So paying at least probably closer to 10 grand, right, for 10 races. The most recent one he went to was Spain. He wants to be pretty anonymous when it comes to his background. Any questions right now from a Q&A session you would want to ask an individual like that? Which I know is nuts to say right now, but before I go, I would be remiss not asking, because he's a Red Bull fan too, and he was there apparently for Abu Dhabi as well. So I would be remiss not asking 2 Red Bull fans with an individual who's, got the monetary means to really ball out, here, what they would think of someone like that.
I mean, why don't you hang out with the common people? Is the first thing I'd ask him.
All right, I'll write these down. Why not hang out with the common folk?
No, I
Do
mean,
you-
what's the benefit of like what's it like when you're there in the paddock and you're seeing like, Horner
Starstruck
walk
almost.
past you or Toto
Yeah.
walk past you or whatever, like what's that experience like? I think that would be the craziest thing. Yeah.
I do know there is a rule with the Paddock Club. You're not allowed to wear F1 merchandise.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you're not allowed to wear like McLaren merch or Red Bull merch in the Paddock Club. You have to. It has to be respect. I think neutral.
At least
or something like
Gucci or something like that.
I
just picked this up from Walmart over here. Yeah.
I just saw off an influencer who was at Silverstone Paddock Club, and they said you couldn't wear merchandise. Like you could wear the colors of your team, like orange or something like, but you couldn't wear official branding or something like that. But I would like to ask, do you work for Red Bull? to get invited, or are you friends of Christian Horner or Max Verstappen?
Or if he's in the paddock, he's probably watching them. I mean, I don't know if he's into the tech side of things, but if he's in the paddock and he's watching them build the car, that's something that I would want to know and see is like, you see they use like laser levels and all these kinds of things to build the car.
Yeah.
Like how meticulous are they when they're building the car to make sure that everything is like exactly as it should be? I would hate to be the guy that like missed a bolt or something like that, and then the car gets retired during the race.
Yeah, like that happened to Haas in Australia, right? I remember that was a few years ago. That was like the first episode ever of Drive to Survive. They didn't have one of the bolts on, I think, correctly on a wheel. But yeah, I know that's kind of a random side note, but I've been trying to find more people to slowly interview, hopefully grow the show a little bit. And that one of my friends sent me the link, and I looked through some of his photos. I'll send it in the group as well. And I was just like blown away by this guy's experience.
Wow.
I'm like, man, it must be nice.
Or did you know how you said you wanted to interview that Matt Bishop from Aston Martin?
Yeah.
Yeah, you can actually, if you get in contact with Cameron F1, he interviewed him, but in the way like it was kind of like what's the word? It was only he could only release it when Matt Bishop said you could release it, like the podcast.
It's probably a Q&A type deal. He probably had a whatever. A lot of the F1 people I've actually contacted with, they want to review pretty much everything before they do anything.
Yeah.
I actually just questions. Yeah.
I had chatted with Jamie Price again recently, and he was kind of saying the same thing when he's talked to people like that F1 side of it. When it comes to actual people towards the top, you always got to have, they want to check over everything before anything's published at all. So.
And they as well, what they want the questions as well. Like I think Matt was talking about his book as well.
Yeah, you have to usually preload them with stuff that they're able to promote in a positive way, because as much as they want to, you want them, they need a reason to kind of be there too. So but that's a lot of things in life. I wish I could bribe you guys here on this, but I can't, so I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's a give and take. Scratch my back, I'll scratch yours kind of a thing. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. There's actually, I should say too, one more thing. There's a few guys I'm actually interviewing coming up. Really cool concept. They make American baseball jerseys, but F1 teams, and they're pretty reasonably priced. Give me 1 minute. I will be right back and show you this guy real quick.
Interesting. Rory, the baseball jerseys in the US, right? Like the ones that button up and stuff like that.
I have a funny story. My cousin's on the J1 in America, and he went to a baseball game, and he said to me it was the most boring sport he could ever. He said the atmosphere was great, but he said the sport, no.
Yeah.
Let me get rid of my.
I'm not a huge baseball fan, but I think when I go to the baseball games, it's mostly just to like eat hot dogs and drink beer.
Pretty much what it always is, isn't it? Right?
Yeah.
They probably don't even have it
catch a foul
over in Europe,
ball.
do they? I wish I could show it right now.
They have cricket. That's kind of maybe the closest thing to baseball.
Yeah. We have here in Ireland, we have rounders. It's like baseball, but we use a much harder ball than you guys do. It's what we use in our Gaelic sports. It's pretty like if you get it to the face, if you get to the face, it can or to the oh, that's nice.
Yeah, they sent me this, which I thought was pretty sweet. And they got
Hey.
so Daniel Ricciardo, obviously, me being biased. They got the Australian flag there.
Oh, cool.
And on the back, I was pretty impressed with it though. The quality's
That's
not too bad.
nice.
I was
That's
like,
nice.
And they're in the
great
U.S.
idea. Yeah, they're U.S. based. It's two brothers out of San Diego, and I was like, this is a really cool idea. So I'm having them on soon as well. But
That's cool.
maybe if I can slide some deals your way, maybe you'll get a little Christmas gift from me.
Heck yeah, Red Bull, size large.
Well, it's better probably than the McLaren merch at the minute. That if you wash it, I have McLaren merch, and you wash it and it falls apart.
Really?
You like the
really?
I wish I had it with me, but it's literally like it was like one of those jersey styles where not like the baseball one what RJ shows, but it had like Ricardo on the back, his number,
Like a football kit?
yeah, and literally everything has fallen off except for the Australian flag.
And as much money as you pay, you would hope that like the quality is really good too.
Yeah, the Aston Martin better be. I want it. That's who I should interview. If you guys find anyone who owns the Aston Martin pullover that's 600 euros, that's who we need out here.
And Mike,
the quality's like.
It's going to get even more expensive because Boss is going to be making the clothing next year. No, the Boss clothing line.
Isn't Lawrence Stroll? Isn't he Tommy Hilfiger? He's I think he's affiliated with Tommy Hilfiger, right?
His background before was something huge with merchandise. It's kind of its own hidden story because his last name also truly isn't Stroll either. It's something completely different. He just still strikes me as kind of a weird cartoon character-ish type villain. Not in a bad way, but that's like kind of the stature and demeanor he kind of gives off sometimes. So
yeah. I think I was gonna say I think Stroll. Yeah, no, I think Tommy Hilfiger's with Mercedes, so I don't think they would branch out with. But I think Boss is going to. They announced that Silverstone that Boss next year will be doing all the team merchandise and everything.
Just for Aston Martin.
Yeah, just for Aston Martin.
Okay, good. So I guess Red Bull is
Puma.
Is it Puma? Yeah.
And AlphaTauri, but Puma. I find the Red Bull merch very good quality wise. It's
yeah. And pro tip here. Puma socks are easily the most comfortable socks, like from a generic brand standpoint. They're better than Nike, and they wear way better than Under Armour. I can tell you that for a fact, because I got all of them in the drawer, and I've been moving socks left and right around the house recently. So.
I just wear bamboo socks.
There you go.
I don't know what those are.
It's like
they're made from bamboo.
Yeah, bamboo, and they're very good for like a smelly feast, like or.
Is that way?
or just like just like smelly feet, I think.
Well, Abu Dhabi this year, I think most people, if it's as crazy and wild as last year, I think most people might be wearing Depends just in case something really hits the fan here. So
I know they have tickets to Abu Dhabi available. I was telling my wife, I was like, I need to find a reason to go out there for business so I can
why not
go to the race.
It's funny you say that because one of the things I'm like with this podcast, I'm like, you know what? I don't want to make it a chore. I almost want to make it like a daily recurring thing so you could really just binge episodes. Because as much as I want enjoy chatting with you guys and the race breakdowns, it's like every podcast really does that in some ways. It's like got to be unique. But what I'm planning on doing is I'm going to time it up tomorrow, or technically today, to get into tomorrow. There's something that popped up on my Instagram: 150,000 American for renting a luxury yacht just for a day for going around that race. And I want to not necessarily prank call them, but just like really get a feeler out there and really see what the packages are really like. Cause that's its own echelon of fans. Let's be real. It's like, that's a down payment on a house in most people, and then
nice.
So, but appreciate having you guys on, though. It was great as always. Hopefully make this some more routine thing. Here in the States, I got the week off, so it's probably not going to be as of a regular thing, but it's always fun.
Nice.
So
we're always here on British Standard Time, so just give us a holler.
I know. Hey, nothing wrong with that. I love it.
All right, guys.
All
Good
right.
chat. Talk
See you
later.
guys.
See you.
Peace
Bye.
out.